happened because you've had experiences that have taught you things, and it's important on this show that I think people learn from what other people have done. Because Rob and I see it all the time, and people do all sorts of weird things in the domain industry. They buy terrible names that should never have been bought.
You know, we're very interested in the steps of someone who buys a domain name for a lot of money. If they do that, it means they must know what they're doing, and there must be a reason why. But a lot of people say, well, you know, I'm not in that position yet to be able to afford such a powerful premium domain name. So what were the steps involved where you could set yourself up to be able to do that?
I think when you're talking about being an end user, owner, operator of a premium name, you've got to have some projects that succeed early on. Usually projects that are not related to a particular name you're looking to buy. In this case, it's VPN. But when I was in college, I was looking for ways to make money online. So there was people in Atlanta and all around the Southeast, for that matter, selling gift cards, and they weren't selling them for 100% of their value. So I thought to myself, okay, well, if I can, find somebody who's willing to sell me $1,000 in Home Depot gift cards, I can then take that and, buy it for, let's say, 70 cents on the dollar, turn that around to, so I was able to make, a 10% spread on average on all the cards that I bought. I bought and sold over the course of about 3 years, close to $2.5 million in cards. So I had a nice little nest egg of profits to work with, but a good chunk of it I parlayed into what became VPN.com. And without those gift cards, Ed, I think to your point, what was kind of preceding everything, without that, I would have never had the awareness, the understanding, or the capital to make a decision like we did with VPN.com.
That was your big stepping stone, I guess.
So at the end of year 3, I recognized, okay, if I really am going to commit to building out the next decade of my life in and around the proxy VPN space, I have to have this name. I was getting to that point, I think, when any brand or company gets to that point where you recognize like this domain could single-handedly change the perception and the entire vision that I'm building. And at that point, I recognized my strategy of trying to acquire it myself is not working. So I either need to bring in a broker or scrap the strategy altogether and try something, going to meet him in person, which I actually tried. I visited his house in California. He unfortunately not there.
Oh, wow. You rocked up to his door and knocked on his door.
I went to his front door.
That's great. I love that.
I did do that.
That's serious.
And I tried faxing him, like every which way I could get to him. No avail. I got a broker involved, and that's when things really started taking a slightly different approach to getting the name. I think what I recognized was having someone who speaks the language and speed of your seller or buyer. Where he's like, okay, I'm ready to sell it. I've heard everybody in the space and their offers, and I wound up paying 4 times more than I originally wanted to.
Wow.
But I got the name, and having learned later on that I was very, very close to not. I was very close to having it sold out from underneath me to a handful of VPN providers. If the conditions and broker was not right, the timing wasn't right, I wouldn't be here with you guys today. So I was very, very fortunate with a lot along that 4-year journey.
I think fortunate, but persistent.
Exactly, Rob and I was sitting there thinking the same thing. Like 4 years, mate. Most people would have given up well before that. So 4 years, that is called tenacity.
Persistence pays.
Yeah, you're a pit bull.
I mean,
but that's what
when all these big VPN companies see VPN.com, I'm sure they've already seen it. I'm sure that they would pay 2, 3, 4, 5 times what you paid for it. They must be kicking themselves at this point.
Right, Rob? That's just now.
Equating a domain to a piece of property or a piece of vacant land. And you can either build or have a hot dog stand on that piece of vacant land, or you can have a 100-story skyscraper. So you're currently putting the 100-story skyscraper on there, and probably what was on there before was the equivalent of a hot dog stand. So, and that's where the usage of the domain is always fascinating, that domain has sat around for 20 plus 25 years, and it's never really had anyone bring it to its full potential. And that's the exciting thing. There's like tens of thousands of opportunities that are sitting there right now with names just like VPN in different spaces that have the hot dog stand on, and no one's building a bigger building or a skyscraper.
It's unfortunate, because I agree with you. I think the domain industry has so much potential, and businesses that are willing to invest in that over the next 20 years will win. And I think there will be more brands. I think the domain space is just getting started again.
Me too.
Nice.
I've always been saying 2020. I think probably 90% of domain names are untapped. I don't know. I'm making that figure up, but there's, I mean, every week at the moment, people are buying, you can see people are buying these premium names, whether it's Australian.com.au or whether it's .com, and they're just building, like Ed said, these big skyscrapers on them. And anyone could have done that over the past 10, 15 years, but it's just, it's like there's gold nuggets lying around if you're looking for them.
Oh, and you gotta, and this is where I think as an end user, as a business owner, you got to stay very focused on, one or a couple domains that impact your industry, like getting into the active investment, I'm going to build skyscrapers on all these properties is not, a strategy I would recommend. No. You have a domain that you believe is going to take your business and the perception of your business up a notch or two. Work the keyword search volume behind it. Work with the influence and perception you believe is worth to your customers, and buy it. And in general, if it improves the quality of your brand, your customers are going to tell you pretty quickly out of the gate. I can't tell you how many conversations I have had strictly for being Michael at VPN.com for no other reason. And that's just the power of my email address, and no other business. And if I was Michael's VPN.com or so-and-so VPN.com or so-and-so anything, no other business is going to be able to walk into the front door of anything like that and get, instant recognition from your competitors, from your prospects, from your customers, from your team.
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah.
You're not just buying a domain name, you're buying the prestige of that name. Forever, yeah.
The address is the key, and that's the thing, and that's why there is such a correlation between physical property and domains, and sometimes it gets a little bit overused. But it is, if you're going to compare anything, it's certainly the thing to compare. And Michael, this is what I can absolutely guarantee you: in 10 years' time, probably even 5 years' time, there are going to be people who say that Michael, he was so lucky. He only had to pay $1 million for that domain. I guarantee it. He got in early.
You got to figure, and there's already people, to some extent saying that, but that good real estate doubles every 10 years.
Yeah.
I think great domain names, to some extent, I'm not entirely sure doubling is accurate in all circumstances, but if you're building a brand on a great domain name, it's going to grow at a rate even more significant than doubling every 2 years. So, sure. It is a combination of what you just said, Rob, of the prestige, is a combination of the foreverness of it. And then if you do it in the right industry at the right time, the right volume, that prestige is going to follow you and be with you in every conversation and everything forever. And I can't stress how valuable that is to a business. That is an incredible aspect that you paid one time for. Businesses spend, I like to say it like this. You have to spend $10 to my $1 to accomplish the exact same perception of my domain.
I like to talk. Yeah, go on.
10-to-1 discount. Oh, I'm sorry, Rob, go ahead.
No, sorry for interrupting. I get excited sometimes. How I imagine and talk about the prestige factor of a domain name is I visited Egypt. I don't know. It was about 6-7 years ago. I'm way into you know, ancient infrastructure and technologies and stuff like that. The hieroglyphics in Egypt apparently were made so that when you saw them, about 10 paragraphs just flooded your mind within half a millisecond. That's like a hieroglyphic. So it's like a subtextual way of communicating. A domain name's prestige factor, you see VPN.com and all of a sudden 10 paragraphs of information subtextually goes through that person's mind going, that's amazing, that's powerful, this guy must be the dominator in his particular industry. So I can really relate to that as well, just the subtextual power of a short, premium, valuable domain name.
And to go one step further on that, which I don't think brokers, you know, they don't necessarily get the luxury of saying this because I think in general, most people buying domain names don't necessarily understand this, but from a search engine standpoint, your domain, especially when you're at the top, so VPN's not in the top 10 right now, but when we are, my click-through rate is going to be significantly higher than all of my competitors.
Absolutely.
For no other reason.
I agree with that. It's like walking into a pyramid and seeing a hieroglyphic. When people type in VPN and on the Google search, they see Fred's fantastic VPN service.com. And if they literally see VPN.com, subliminally, they're just going to go, that must be where I need to go. Click.
Organically, like that has a ton of benefits. From a paid standpoint, so if you get into search engine marketing or really anything online or off, you want a VPN, go to VPN.com. Like, you want a hotel, go to hotels.com. You know, it's that level, you know, that hieroglyphic on the wall, it says one thing, okay, that's a hotel, that's a VPN. I'm going to go to VPN.com. Like, I mean, you're not asking the customer, you're not trying to fool the customer. They're just like, okay, these guys are on VPN.com. They know what they're talking about. And that, of course, with the right content strategy, with the right value delivery, that can be everything brands in your space fight day in and day out to produce. And you have the luxury of having it forever. And I just love that. People read the brand. Like that's how they assess trust and value. You know, at a very rudimentary level. That's why browsers still show you the URL. That's why, you know, Google, when you're looking at their search results, they show you that URL, because without that URL, they have the end user has very limited ability to gauge who you are, you know, how trustworthy you are, and your ability to answer what I'm looking for quickly. And that all is in your domain.
That's a good point. At any point, Google could have, once you go to a website, they could have put the header in the URL bar instead, but they know not to do that, because everyone is trained now that the URL is the home and the address of where this company and product or service lives.
Forever. And that again, kind of go all your location. It matters online 10 times more than it matters off. That will grow into, you know, the forever future. So, you know, people wanting to buy, you're thinking about buying a premium name and you got great reason for it. It will pay off now and forever. And it's just a great thing to have as a quality business.
Absolutely.
So a couple of the things that I picked up definitely is invest now in a premium domain. It'll pay for itself 100 times over down the track. And it opens doors very, very quickly compared to, and the other thing, and Rob will like me saying this, particularly with higher purchase prices of domains, you should speak to a qualified domain broker rather than trying to do it yourself, because they've been through it all, know all the shortcuts and the tricks and the workarounds.
And sometimes, like you were talking about before, Michael, sometimes literally just adding the concept of a broker or a third person can make the seller take the whole thing more seriously.
Absolutely. And that's something, I mean, I know you all, represent a lot of the Australian market in terms of brokerage, but yeah, I think guys, if you need brokerage, these are definitely some great guys. It's been a pleasure, Ed and Rob, for coming on the show. So thank you for having me. I really